Okay, check, testing, check, 1, 2, check, testing, check, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Checking the sound. Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well today. So we are live. Check, 1, 2, check, testing. Okay. Sounds like we are good. Just gonna turn this down here. Okay. We're back. I'm back, you're back, we're back. We are live to talk about Andor Season 2, Episodes 1 through 3. Man, I was supposed to be live 2 hours ago, but I was actually in the middle of finalizing to prepare for the stream. So yeah, hope you all are doing well. Hope everybody has been well this week. It's been a long stretch to get to this week, to get to this past Tuesday for the debut of these 3 episodes. Just the show in general, just season 2. Like I mentioned in prior streams, like once we found out that season 3 was dropping 3 episodes each week, that's when I was like, oh man, like I'm gonna have to do extra work, and I'm down to put in the work to chat about our favorite show here, one of our favorite shows in Star Wars currently. Yeah, episodes 1, 2, and 3 debuted this past Tuesday. What fun, great episodes for this week. Definitely already looking forward to episodes 4, 5, and 6 this coming Tuesday. Just man, and I still have like another video that I have to put together for tomorrow. I was supposed to do that today. That didn't happen because I was finalizing for the stream today. So, what can you do? What can you say? But we are here. We are live, and we're gonna jump into. I had to have our boy Cyril in the back here, because man, when I tell y'all episode 3. Man, the dinner, everything about the dinner was it was like pretty much perfect, to be honest. And what they gave us for Dadra, Cyril, and Edie, the dinner table, that whole scene, that whole thing was it's just hilarious. So yeah, gonna try to condense each episode down. There's a plethora of stuff we could still talk about, still discuss, still go through as far as each episode. But I just personally just feel like we can just talk about a few things per each episode, key things, key points, and yeah, we can touch on the more controversial spot in episode 3, but that will be more so touched for maybe a couple of minutes, not even that long. Just because for me specifically, I'm like, I would rather just focus on the other stuff. So with that, let's go on ahead. I'm gonna go on ahead and pull up episode 1's images here, because this took 2 days to do. I wish I had done these on Wednesday while I was off, but I did not. I was in the middle of just doing my videos for this week and didn't have too much time. Where did I put you? There we are. So yeah, let's go on ahead and let me get off of here. So yes, episode 1, which is titled 1 Year Later. Like they had described and talked to us about as far as the show, like it basically was going to be arcs specifically for every 3 episodes, and pretty much it was gonna, if I remember correctly, the show itself was gonna progress 1 year ahead. So basically 4 years in total to walk us into Rogue One. And that's pretty much where we get the first specific year here at the very beginning of episode one, uh, which I definitely don't mind how they set this up. Of course, they give us the BBY 4, battle before the Battle of Yavin, um, and just the opening, right? Just the spot with the ship. The ship is very beautiful, looks very sleek, and just the area itself, with the lighting and everything, with the robot, with the young lady here. I also want to mention that this young lady is actually a beautiful young lady. Actually, she stood out to me a lot in her debut of. I guess I want to say this is her first intro into the Star Wars realm here. But this young lady is very, very, very beautiful. I just have to look up her name if I can find it, to give her credit for what she did, because I felt like she did a really good spot. Really, really good acting from her, from this young lady here. But I do like the cockpit of the ship. Again, this is literally a very small ship for one specific person, just like any other um, TIE fighter here, right? And this was just a different type of a ship, right? But I do like the look of this robot. I like the fact that her pad here, that it kind of reminded me actually of the pad that Dedra uses in season one, but it was just bigger. I do like how she took the pad and put it and connected with the robot. I don't think I grabbed a screenshot for that though. I did not, but I think you see it on the corner there of the screenshot. But I had to grab this spotter because I do like that they gave the front viewpoint of this spot here at the very beginning of the episode, and then that's when they give us the outside shot, letting us know where this is, what this testing facility number 73 for called I believe it's called Sinir, or excuse me, Cianar. I want to say it's Cianar, like kind of like Sayonara or Sayonara, but definitely a spot that's a very, very cold spot. The one thing that stood out to me when we get to Cassian, where he's at, is these continue to this stuff with the Empire continues to, when you really look at this stuff, you can really tell that the Empire can talk a lot of jargon about, making the place a better place, a galaxy and stuff like that. But when we look at the sections of all the corridors, the spaces, places where people go and sit, eat, and everything, these spaces, places do not look comfortable, to be honest. Like, literally don't look comfortable. I've always felt like, the tables, the seating, all of that had just not a comfortable space. You sit down and those spots are cold. That's just always been my viewpoint. But the one thing, of course, in this spot, we do see Cassian sitting here, but he's basically on edge because he goes on ahead and grabs his gun to kind of be in preparation to defend himself. I did like that spot here specifically, as he's turned to, facing the door near this window here, just because he's waiting for, that young lady to come so they can have, key to converse about what they're preparing for. But once she officially gets here, then the tone shifts. Why does the tone shift? And it's pretty much because she does mention that she's nervous, she's afraid. Cassian does tell her, like, hey, like, that's good, it keeps you keeps you on your toes. And I, like I said, like I mentioned, she her acting here, more specifically to me, in her introduction as a character in the show, even if it was just this one moment, to me was good, because she was able to cry on the spot. You, as an actor, many people can't cry on the spot, and she was able to tap into those emotions real fidgety, all of that. But Cassian was able to kind of like help calm her down, which I also love too, because he's just like, hey, we can do this. You can do this. We've got this. We've gotten up to this moment, and we can continue to press forward to prepare to get this ship, grab the ship, and get the ship out of here. Um, but again, that's what I'm saying. Like per this young lady and her character, um, I just personally, again, like I mentioned, she's a very attractive young lady to me, and like I said, she was able to cry on the spot, and that was, to me, that was really an effective scene here in the opening spot of episode 1 of season 2. Um, and I did like the very very brief interaction with the. I think I did grab it. I don't remember. Actually, I did not. I didn't grab it. It was basically the one young lady that came and spoke to Cassie and spoke to her, and they were talking, and she was all like, "Oh, like, she whispered into her ear, and then she walks up and says like, "Hey, she thought that you were cute." I thought that that was a little slight, little funny little spot there that they decided to throw in there. But with that being said, Cassian, the look of his suit, all of it. This is, to me, this is a dope look. Um, the coloring, the red, all of that. These, excuse me, these pilot suits have always looked super cool to me, and to see Cassian wearing it was just like really really cool. Here specifically for the opening episode, and then that's when we get him pretty much to go to the ship. And like I said, I really really like the look of the ship. This Avenger, right? Um, and poor droid, right? The droid comes to him. It alerts. I like how the droid noticed its sensory and stuff. It literally was going in a specific direction, and then it just like popped, boom, red alert type of thing. But then, of course, poor droid, Cassian takes the droid out. I think I did. Yes, I did. Yeah, Cassian takes the droid out as swiftly as possible before it could alert anybody. Yeah, but the droid was just doing its job. Its droid job, right? Where are we? And then that's when we get Cassian in the actual cockpit of the ship. They did, if I remember correctly, Star Wars did release this scene a couple of different times, different ways, but I think it was more so once he was getting ready to fly off. But I do like how when he sat down in the cockpit of the ship, that the ship decided. Yeah, I want to say it's like the sensory more so sitting in the seat here. The sensories automatically activated. Everything started to turn on, engine revving up, and all of that. But of course, per what we found out from what he converses with Clea in episode 3, that when he first got into the cockpit, he automatically was confused. So him sitting in the cockpit, him starting to just push random buttons, let me know, definitely I felt like probably more than I let you all know, that this is a ship that he wasn't expecting to be flying, right? But that was something that I kind of automatically picked up. He was just pushing buttons, trying to figure out what did what, what turned on what, so that he can prepare to start flying this ship here. So that, again, per the opening spot here with the ship with Cassian, I automatically could tell that he didn't know what he was really doing when he first got into the cockpit of the ship and really was trying to figure stuff out. But of course, he pushes some buttons. This is one of my favorite guns here, the Gatling gun. But of course it's attached to the sprayer. It's attached to the ship. But again, we do, like I said, Star Wars, roughly over the past 2-3 weeks, they did release key footage from this specific spot here. Let me see, where am I? I just lost my spot here. And I do like how once he decided to try to launch the ship out and it went in the other direction, There were red lights everywhere. This is the red light, of course, meaning bad, right? Um, Not good. He's really trying to collect himself and really try to figure out how to maneuver the ship. Um, I feel like this was also a good spot here because he, again, didn't really know what he was doing in this ship. So he was just trying to just figure stuff out, trying to push buttons, and of course, that's when he started to shoot the lasers and stuff. I thought that was funny here, but of course, that's when the troopers came. I thought I grabbed screenshots for the troopers coming in, but that is totally fine. There they go. Yep, because he's crashing up in the ceiling and stuff. Um, that was a little bit of a funny scene, but of course, that's when he decides to start shooting at the troopers. But I do also too. I do definitely like Cashin's reaction to the one trooper uh, with the bazooka, basically. Um, Here you go. When he shot at it, he was able to react immediately to be able to maneuver out of the way before the what you call it almost hit the ship here. This was good. But again, Lucasfilm, they released this stuff out to us, but eventually that's when we see that Cashin decided to release the rocket towards the dude, and your boy's Dunzo, right? Um, and then Cashin shoots out, and I kind of felt like with this spot, this was again Cashin really trying to figure out how to maneuver the ship. He just shoot out, keep shooting, and then just barge through to get outside. Um, and of course, they had to give us this spot here once he got outside, once he got towards the edge of the mountain. They had to give us a spot of, oh, okay, he's here, but the ship decides to randomly cut off, if I remember correctly, here. But in the midst of all of that, that's when, because I do like how the ship, its sensories turned on a little bit to be able to then focus on the other ships that were coming, and then of course the basically the rockets that were heading in his direction, and he's trying to figure out how to get the ship back up and running. I do like how the sensories were working in the ship. Like it was just like I felt like the ship was sort of kind of like alive. Basically, that's kind of how I felt like for this spot in the beginning of the episode here. But of course, Cassian eventually figures out how to fly the ship. Of course, they eventually had the ship go down into the little canyon thing here and then fly up. That part didn't last long. That was like typical. That's typical cinematic stuff that they normally would do with stuff like this, with ships, to kind of cause you to have a little bit of a worry for the main characters and stuff. But of course, Cassian's flying away. He's getting chased. But eventually he, of course, figures out his way, and then he flies off and out to head to where he's trying to get to. And then that's when, of course, we end up switching to the other crew. Cassian's Ferrick's family. Now, my response to this was, I was like, oh, we got people here. Will, he's outside. He's knocked out on his hammock, right? I've never actually laid in a hammock before. I wish that I could. Hopefully one day I can experience that. I hear it's very relaxing. But I do like the inside of their, small little space here. We do see various amount of items as far as from Ferrix is concerned in this space and place. And we see people, like I said, we're seeing people. We see B. Bees asleep, all of that. Our favorite, a lot of our favorite characters are here, and then of course we get Gorse. Gorse is here. He pops up. More than he, Gorse is more than likely in the show. It's just that here you were, I, I was automatically like, oh man, Gorse is here. Okay, this is bad. Like, what's really about to happen in this moment? Um, and we don't know. Of course, we the viewer, we don't really know what's about to really occur. But then, of course, that's when Gorse goes towards Bix and where she's laying at. Uh, and that's when we get what we got, and that was pretty much finding out that um, that Bix was having a nightmare because she's asleep, and Gorse leans down and grabs the blanket, um, and she startles to wake up, but it's not, it's not Gorse at all. It's Brazo trying to wake her up, trying to calm her down and saying, hey, like, snap out of it, like, hey, it's okay, you're okay. you know um I just, like I said, I just actually like this because to me, now that I've rewatched all three episodes, more specifically for Bix's character, and of course we got B coming to basically say like, hey, like, Bix has had another, basically having another nightmare. But this is letting us know that Bix is gonna be having some mental issues. She's gonna be, because she's still affected from season one, um, when it's pertaining to what occurred with her character, um, basically over a year ago. So, but then of course we're going to get what we get in episode three, which again is very, very controversial. But like I said, I'm going to touch on a little bit of that, but not too much. But like I said, this just lets me know that Bix is going to, um, she's going to be going through it. So, I'm, hopeful that, her mind will find peace over the course of these several, these last 3 weeks. We'll see what happens, because again, we are now only 3 weeks, out from, the show finalizing. So, but then we get Chandrilla. I like the look of Chandrilla. It looks really, really cool, on this mountaintop here. Um, the one thing that kind of um, what we're eventually we're going to be talking about is the wedding. But the one thing that I do like about Chandrilla is just the look of the building itself, the aesthetic of it, the colors, all of that stuff. The camera angles in these episodes were really, really done so well. The costumes, the dresses, the colors of the costumes and dresses, very, very beautiful. I really personally have to give it up to the that side of the team as far as the show is concerned, because everybody, to be honest, like everybody in the show, from the youngest to the oldest, everybody just looked really, really dressed up really, really well. Looked like it didn't look like anything was off as far as clothing wise. Even Lita's dress was just really, really beautiful. But again, like I said, I still have some interesting thoughts on the wedding, because again, this is a year out. Dalvo, he really like pressed for this wedding to occur. He sat there and said he wanted an introduction. Yeah, dude, you didn't get it. He didn't get an introduction. He freaking got the whole shebang. But once we got to my Mothma, um, to her crappy husband, um, and everybody else that was going to be in, centered around this wedding. Like I said, I like the camera angles and how everything shifted once we got to Mon Mothma. Everything like just rolled and flowed in such a way. Everybody's interactions, like I said, the colors, the clothing, everybody just played their role so well in the opening episode here. And I have to give it up uh, to Madam Genevieve Riley because she did so well. She continues to knock it out the park as my Mothma, the character, and her the various expressions on her face continues to shift and change in so many ways when it's pertaining to her character. I like man like yeah I I just I just applaud this young lady for what she has continued to bring with this character. This guy, I forgot his name specifically, but he's supposed to be the person that is with her in I think it's in Clone Wars. I could be wrong. Could be in Rebels. It's one of the two, but we get his live. He gets his live action debut at least. I just at the moment in time I can't remember his actual name, but we do gain a little bit of information when he's talking to Luthen in episode 3 for sure, when he's talking pertaining to his parents. So it kind of, I'm just sitting back like, oh, like okay, we get his little bit of backstory, then we get Dedra's backstory a little bit. I know I've read a few people's questions, comments in the videos asking, wondering like about Dedra. The hope is that we gain some more information about her past. Maybe we won't, but maybe it was just placed in episode 3. But the one thing, back to the opening spot here with Mon Mothma, the one thing that I did talk about in the one trailer when we got it was this is basically them in that last trailer before the actual show debuted, was this spot here, because this is where I knew that something was going on when Mon Mothma, her expression changed and everything. She was all glowed up. She was focused and everything, and then her expression changed because she saw somebody that she wasn't expect. Because to me, it felt like she did not expect this person to be here, and her expression, her tone, everything shifted. It changed, and this is how she continued to be throughout these 3 episodes. And personally, when it's pertaining to the wedding, I kind of just felt like, and I believe that many of you would agree, is that Mon Mothma was possibly in the right in expressing herself towards the end of episode 3. But we will talk about that over the course of the next roughly hour or so. But I do like how my Mothman, when she's walking down, this is when the camera starts to roll in a specific way. It's following her every step to get her to the point where we're getting ready to get to. But as she's walking, she still stays in go mode in the midst of her mind, like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? Like, why is this person here? But she's still able to at least smile. She's still able to at least be expressive. But again, when she's walking down and the camera's following her, her head dips down some, and her focus gets a little bit swayed off, because again, she's basically making a beeline towards this person. We at the time we didn't know who she was focused and worried about, but in the midst of all of this, when she walks by Vel, she does mention like, hey, he is here. And of course, Vel, of course, is like, oh, like what? Like, what do you mean? And of course, that's when she looks over and does notice that this person is here. So, like I said, Mon Mothma, the expression on her face, man, like, this character is written so well, like almost perfect down to the T of how you should act as a actor or actress. Like, man, like I truly, just to be honest, was just blown away. But again, once again, I gotta keep mentioning this: the outfits, the costumes, everything, the designs of them, the looks, the colors, everything. Everybody just looks so beautiful, so like almost like perfect, and nothing looked like it was too big or too long or too short when it's pertaining to the look and feel of each and every character that got placed in front of our eyes when it was their turn to come in front of the camera or wherever the cameras were looking. But let me see where here. And then we get, where did I go? Okay. Yeah, so she finally gets to this. She gets down to where the main spot is, to where she can freely walk. We do then get, because there's a video that I'm gonna do. It's probably gonna be for tomorrow. There's another video that they need to do that I'm probably gonna wait to. It's either I'm gonna do, because I have to do a video on Tacoma. It has to be done. But it may be done tomorrow. If not, it'll definitely be done by Monday, because Tuesday is when we get episodes 4, 5, and 6. But I'm gonna mention this now, just because I need to mention this now. I work Wednesday. I'm not off, so it's gonna be a bit tougher to get videos out the way that I normally do, because I was off on Wednesday when the show debuted, so I was able to actually pour in. I literally took all day to do the videos that I did. So episodes 4, 5, and 6 for my videos, however I'm going to do them, they're going to be coming out a little bit later. I may not be able to get the first video out the next day on Wednesday, but I'll try. We'll see what happens. But again, Tacoma, they have a brief conversation. But I do, once again, I do love Tacoma's outfit. Like I said, everybody just looks so good. But they have a brief conversation, because because of what they're going to be talking about later in the in the coming episodes. I love Mon Mothma, and how this was the spot here from the trailer. She still is puzzled. She was focused on Tacoma in that conversation, but then she went back to being puzzled. I'm wondering why Luthen is here. And of course, Luthen is like, hey, it's a secret why I'm here. Because again, she wasn't expecting him to be here. Let's see. And then that's when Skalden comes, and he's basically like, hey, like, my mother, you can't be around. This is something. This is a very secretive conversation. You can't listen in. You can't be here. So I was kind of curious and wondering what they were up to in the moment that they were conversing. And of course, that's when Mon Mothma and Vel have a conversation about this whole secret thing going on between those two gentlemen. So that is that. But then we have Clea pop up, and she has a specific conversation with Luthen. Where are we? So Luthen is pretty much wondering, have they heard from Cassian? And of course, they're saying no communication has occurred. She's just like, hey, like, all you can do is be patient. I'm doing my thing and doing what I need to do. I will go back and recheck to see if we got any type of response, blah blah blah. But Luthen is like, he's pressing. I felt like he was pressing here, but this was like a small press. I noted he ends up pressing a bit more later in the episodes when it's pertaining to both Clea and Mon Mothma, because of what's getting ready to transpire, right? But Clea, I love the fact that per her character, she's just like, look, like she's stern and very blunt with her responses a lot of times. I've been meaning to do another video on her. I just haven't had the chance to at the time, so hopefully I can. But I do love Clea's character. Like, her character to me is a very, very dope character. She's very stern. She's very blunt in her responses. But per the conversations, she's just like, look, I got this. You continue to go do what you're doing. I got this. We're gonna figure this out. And then that's when we switch to This spot. I do like this spot. This outlook. The feel. All of this. Man, like farm life. This is man. I still kind of wish that I had like a farm, to be honest. Like it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's just you and the farm. Like no real populace. Like this to me, this is just like heaven. But I did enjoy Bix and Will's conversation when they're talking here. They are. I want to believe that this was like this machine that they were trying to fix was like a something that like sprouted out like some type of liquid to be able to keep the field from drying out because of the heat and everything and the lack of moisture. Because I believe that Bix did mention something about that here in this scene, but again, that's not what was important. The important spot was the fact that Will had um, a love interest, and Bix was enjoying the fact that he has a love interest, right? Um, because Balea, she pops up, and I do like that Bix is like, are you thirsty? And he's like, what are you talking about? And she nods over to the young lady, very pretty young lady that's coming in the direction. And when she pops up, she's definitely coming with something to drink. Specifically, she's like, hey, I was just wanted to make sure that you were okay. I brought you some, something to drink, some water and stuff. But Bix was just like, she was like glued in and really enjoying seeing Will kind of like, I kind of felt like she was enjoying Will kind of uh, perk up a bit in a nervous way, right? But she, I get it, I understand. But at the same time, in the midst of all of that, that's when it got serious. Why? Because yes, there's something more important that's going to be happening as these episode progresses from now and forward, and that is the fact that there's this imperial ship that's coming and it's landing. Um, and you're of course you're like, per the trailers, you're like, what's really going on and why? But we figure out why eventually. So that is that. Um, Now, that's when we switch to cashing, landing uh, in this specific place, the specific planet that we were curious about, wondering where he was and why he decided to come out here. Um, and we see that he gets the outlook out through the space of the ship here. Um, Again, I love the inside of the ship. Like the look of the ship is just really just like cool to me. Once he lands, he's calling out the Porgo. Some people were saying like Porgo sounds like what's his face from the original trilogy, but it was a nickname. I believe it was called Piggy. But we really won't know, um, just because per what is getting ready to happen. He's calling out to Porgo, but Porgo doesn't respond. But he gets other people responding and telling him like, "Hey, like stop what you're doing, blah blah blah, or we'll hurt you, we'll take you out, blah blah blah." Put your gun down. He does. He listens. He does what they're saying, and then that's when they come and grab him. Now, I did see some responses from people online per this section here when it's pertaining to just the entire thing. I sort of kind of had the similar response to what was getting ready to transpire here. I'm going to touch on it a little bit, not too much. But I eventually understood why Gilroy did this specific spot here with the Mapes. I understood. But let's talk about the Mothling Divide, right? This space and place, wherever this specific planet is, whatever, very, very cold, very snowy. I forgot to grab something specific here, but I think I can at least, what I can do is I can at least grab, get uh, the key information because there was something about what's going to come up. And what is that? Director Krennic, he has a key meeting with some very important people in this very important meeting, this space and place room, right? And he's talking about a specific initiative. Some people like this scene here, other people didn't, right? But he's talking about the Gorman initiative. And what do we get when it's pertaining to the Gorman initiative and why these people are in this room? We get a first time ever projection style based video. As far as I could tell, as far as I can remember, I don't think we've ever had a projection style um, meeting or whatever, video and everything playing, the music, all of that stuff. I don't think we've ever. I can't remember off the top of my head. Can you? Because I can't. But we gain this video playing, and some people's responses are different than others. But I was paying attention to some people's responses in the room. But of course, they're talking about these spiders. They're basically going to be talking about the Calcite and all of that. But I was just cracking up, to be honest. I was actually enjoying seeing this transpire when they were talking about spiders, talking about the Gorman people. Definitely felt like an infomercial, commercial, all of that, advertisement, everything. I was just like, this is hilariously great. And yeah, I love this spotter because again, when you came in here, you're like, oh, there's this meeting. What are they talking about? Oh, they're talking about a Gorman. Okay. No, did you expect to see a projection video being played in this room? If the answer is no, like I didn't, yeah, exactly. I was just like, man. Even Dedra's facial response, like, dude, like, man, like I'm glad that she was in this room here, right? Along with our homie Partagas, he was in this room. But I, again, I enjoyed this video. It was just hilarious to me that they had this video playing, and then of course they stopped with your boy holding the spiders. Before Partagas decided he wanted to continue to chat with them about specific stuff. But then of course we go back to, again, again, per episode 1, we don't know that these are the Maya pays. We don't know that information. But the reason why I kind of felt like we got the Maya pays here in episode 1 is, one, of course, it's the introduction to this this side of this group, right? A dysfunctional group. Let me find it. A group that didn't have a leader. The guy in the middle there, that's actually Tony Gilroy's son. I don't remember his name, but yeah, he's here, and then we got the rest of the crew here. But again, this is a very dysfunctional group. They don't, they've been stranded here for 48 hours. They lost their leader. Eventually we do find out that the person that Cashin is coming here to see is no longer alive because they took him out. But when we get this introduction, they're trying to figure out who Cashin is, why he's here. Cashin is just saying like, hey, I'm here to meet somebody. Why isn't he here? Help me find him. And they're like, what are you talking about? He eventually brings up the rebellion. He's like, what rebellion and stuff like that. So I personally felt like one of the main reasons why they brought up the My Pays is because, one, yes, Saul Guerrero did mention the sectorist groups, but I kind of feel like we're gonna get to see a couple of the other groups in these episodes, not just the My Pays for episode 1, 2, and 3, But I feel like we're going to see the other groups that Saw Gerrera mentions um, in the show. That's my hope, but it really depends on if that's what they decided, if that's what Gilroy and the writers decided to really do, um, or if this was just a one-off thing. Um, but this was just to show, to me, from my perspective, is that this group, they are a group that more than likely is a part of the rebellion that more than likely would join, right? But at this moment in time, they're not, they aren't fully, aware of what is really transpiring. Cassian does bring up the rebellion. Cassian does try to get them to understand, like, yo, I'm on your side. We're fighting on the same side here. He's attempting to, of course, stay alive, but again, a lot of people felt like this stuff dragged, just because it was these 3 episodes, and it to me it was a lot to really kind of just like take in and deal with when it's pertaining to this group of people here. But again, I personally feel like after rewatching the whole entire scene in its totality, I just personally felt like that there was more of a bit of a meaning, um, to this group, to this crew, in the midst of eventually cashing, escaping. Let me see, I haven't lost my space here. But in the midst of all of that, let's go back to me was like the main topic of episode 1, and that was the Gorman project with Krennic talking to this crew, talking to these people, talking to Partagas, talking to Dedra about how, they were specifically handpicked to be in this room to converse about what specifically? That is Calkite, the Death Star, the laser, all of that in this room. It kind of reminded me of, just a little bit, but because again they're sitting down, but it kind of reminded me of back on Mandalorian. Um, I don't know why I lost my train of thought, but that meeting with all of those other folks from that specific meeting, it kind of reminded me of that. But what I found out from other viewers is that they felt like this reminded them of the one, if I remember correctly, the wanna something, scene from Conspiracy back in 2001, where they basically had similarities with this, with the meeting from Conspiracy, similarities with the meeting here about Gorman, because both groups basically were talking about, the one group from Conspiracy was talking about basically getting rid of the Jews, because that was their focus, because they were connected with Hitler. And in this scene, when they're talking about, Calkite, about the advertisement and controlling the narrative, like how my video was talking about with these two gentlemen here, they even Krennic, same thing with, like I said, with the thing called Conspiracy. Go check out that scene. I think it's like 15-20 minutes into the film, because I checked it out. It's on HBO Max. They, here in the scene with Krennic does mention, he does literally say, like, yo, we want to possibly kind of, help get rid of some Gorman people. And there were some specific people, more so Partagas, his response to some of the stuff was he definitely was taken aback. I mean, there were key conversations between Partagas and somebody else in the room. This specific guy here, when they ended up talking off to the side, again, dude knew more than what Partagas knew. This is what I'm saying. Partagas, a lot of this information is more than likely above his pay grade, but he was placed in this room. to have this conversation, to hear this information, and to say, hey, like, you're here for a reason. And there, we are looking to get this cowkite, get these spiders rolling and everything, and make the magic happen. What am I doing here? So, Partagas was taking all of this stuff in, and of course, our girl Dedra was doing the same, right? But again, we know that she, kind of was just like, eventually was second guessing. It was just like, I don't want it anymore, because she wanted to refocus on Axis. But she got excited in the beginning of it all. She got excited about being in this room. So I found it interesting about her shift in wanting to, again, per Partagas and what he was saying, it was a downgrade, right? Where am I at? Where are we at here? But, Krennic was just saying, he's like, yo, like, this is important. And if I remember correctly, only Emperor Palpatine really was the one that knows about this meeting, because even Krennic does say, he mentions in the beginning of this meeting, like, none of this stuff is on record. None of this stuff, people don't know that you are here. That's the other key thing that I didn't want to forget to mention in this space and place about the Gorman initiative, basically. Is that, he's just saying, like, this is basically off record. You all are here for something super important that nobody else knows outside of us and the Emperor himself. That is it. So that also means that more than likely Tarkin doesn't know about this. Yularen doesn't know about this. And of course, probably more than likely Anakin, aka Vader, doesn't know about this. So Krennic is looking to, handle and make things happen. Where are we? Let's see. So then that's when we get the specific conference, because this guy here, he had said a couple of things when he was basically saying, like, yo, like, if we do this, there's a specific number of Gorman the civilization is gonna get affected. I think if I remember correctly, he even brought something else up like this in this conversation here, specifically when he's talking, when they're grabbing the little treats and stuff. So, even Partagas had spoken up about some stuff. So Krennic was trying to get them to really understand, like, yo, like, this needs to happen. So, I was taking in a lot of what was going on in this scene, but there's still a plethora of stuff that we can unpack. But again, per what Partagas was talking about with this dude here, is that he has more information, and he's letting Partagas know that the Emperor, Krennic, they have established a little bit more than what was even spoken about in this meeting. And he even tells Partagas, like, yo, like, we have Krennic has a key amount of men set up to begin starting stuff tomorrow. And what was Partagas' response? He said, excuse me? Yeah, shock and awe, right? This was a moment that, to me, I felt like Partagas had to get Dedra to understand come the beginning of episode 2. But coming up right here is Dedra and Krennic's conversation, because this is a video that I gotta do, but I want to talk about it here a little bit. And that is the fact that he tells Dedra in this space and place, like, yo, I handpicked you to be in this room with me. I need you to give me your honest opinion. What should I do? And he even tells Dedra, you already had the answer before I came over here. You are somebody who thinks on their feet. Speak your mind. Tell me what I should do. And Dedra's response is simple. Look, you need to use the people to your advantage. That's basically what she said to him. Don't, don't. It's basically saying like, don't hold back from using them in a specific way that benefits your ultimate goal. And once he heard that, of course, once you walk away, he had that smile, which this is the spot here that we got from the trailer. When he's looking out the window, he's smiling. He has basically, Krennic has this initiative, but he didn't really know how to go about it. And that's one of the main reasons why he had Dedra in the room, because he's like he told her, I have my ear to the ground on specific things and specific people, and you're one of them. That's basically what he told her. And that's why he had her in the room. And that's why he approached her. If you really looked at when he walked up to her, he had a pep in his step and everything, because he was waiting, bated breath, to have that conversation with her. This is why Dedra would excel. This is why Dedra needed to be removed from Axis and to be here, because again, per episode 2, per her conversation with Partagas, and what we see, this is the new thing that Dedra has to be excited about and focused on. Now again, per trailers and stuff, and I'm actually going to come back on camera real quick, real briefly, but per the trailers and stuff, when we saw how Dedra was responding to certain things, she's gonna be overwhelmed either way. But currently in this moment in time, she's excited in the room. But again, 12 hours, whatever, how many hours, 6 hours, 8 hours after she sleeps and she wakes up, she's like, you know what? I don't want this. I want to get back on what I was doing. She had to, Partagas had to help her understand, like, yo, this is not a demotion. This is your new baby. You had the one baby, this is your new one. Here, it's a gift. Take it, relish in it, and excel, because this is where you will elevate. And this is what's gonna help her to rise up even higher in the empire. And once she really realizes that, I feel like Dedra will just like skyrocket as a character even more. So yeah, that is that. But then we went back to space. We had B here. Other robots. I like too how they had a couple of extra aliens in these episodes. Plethora of robots. I always love the robots, right? A plethora of the robots that were kind of like, sort of in a sense, kind of like B. They were rolling about, moving about quickly and stuff. I enjoyed those spots here. But per the conversation here, they were basically hulling up about their of course their worry more so was about the visas, about um basically the empire being there when technically they're trying to live a peaceful life, um, and they're but in the midst of all that, they're still waiting for Cassian to get back. That's the key thing to note about their specific scenes. They're waiting for Cassian to get back so that they can move forward, whatever it is that they're trying to do, whatever else that they're trying to do. But per the conversations that they have their own main worry. Um, so I enjoy, me personally, I enjoyed their spot when it's pertaining to Brazo, to Bix, to Will, um, the young lady here. I don't remember if they name dropped her name. I can't remember, but they're still game planning ahead, trying to strategize on what to do next because they have this imperial group down here getting ready to check spaces and places and stuff at some point. But in the midst of all of that, we go back to Clea and Luthen, and Luthen's like, "Yo, like again, pressing, like, have you heard anything? Why haven't you heard anything?" And she's just like, I think if I remember correctly, Luthen had asked her like, "What do you need?" She was like, "I need a drink," and I felt like the drinks for a lot of the main characters were more on the what you call it, just to say like their drinks were definitely they were they were needed for them. But yeah, Luthen, I felt like Luthen was a little bit on edge for sure because he's just like, yo, like, what's really happening right now? What's really going on? I'm kind of in the because I kind of felt like he was in the dark for real, just being honest. But that's when we get back to um, in preparation for the wedding here, um, and we have a very very brief conversation um, between Dalvo and my mama's crappy husband, um, and they're basically talking about the bride and groom, basically, if I remember correctly, per this conversation. Um, but I definitely want to commend the younger cast here because I felt like not just Lydia and Stecken, not just them did a really good job as far as them being betrothed into this new, into expanding both of their families, but even the younger generation, all of them did so well. The young ladies and all of them, they did so well to me as far as their characters are concerned and how they moved and flowed when it's pertaining to them being um, on screen. Um, but Luthen, the one thing that stood out to me about him is that he, uh, in the midst of him, really just like, yo, like, I need to figure out what's going on with Cassian and blah, blah, blah. He was definitely asking a lot of questions to specific people. He was literally saying, "Oh, you're from where? Tell me more. What's going on over there? Who's all supposed to be there? Where are you?" He was asking because he to me he was getting ready to put himself in other spaces and places that more than likely was going to show up in the show, that he may more than likely go to. So this is what Luthen was doing in the midst of him, acting like Luthen the um, uh, the shop, basically the shopkeeper, right? But he, like I said, even right here in this moment, like, oh, where are you from? Like, who's all there and blah blah blah. He was dude was just like a sponge. He was being real nabby when it's pertaining to everybody's business, right? I was cracking up like a lot. But I also do definitely like the fact that Clea, like I said, she did mention that she needed a drink. I did like the fact that she was grabbing a plethora of drinks. She had just literally drowned one drink and she went in and grabbed another thing of, well, I want to believe this is wine, but this is probably their own version of wine. Um, but her and Vel have a interesting conversation because Vel pretty much is kind of questioning like, why are you here and where did you come from? And um, it was a very interesting conversation that I kind of feel like they may have another interaction later down the road. That I feel like this specific spot here where they conversed is not over. Uh, just because like Vel mentioned, she's basically been placed outside of Luthen's spectrum. Uh, Cinta is, as we eventually find out, Cinta is under the guise of Luthen's thumb now. Um, so she feels. I definitely believe that Vel feels some type of way about her just kind of being pushed to the side, and Cinta hasn't been around, hasn't heard from her, any of that. Cinta is her lover and everything, but she's just like, oh, okay, Cinta is basically doing business and doing this, that, and the third, and I'm just out the loop. I just feel like she's feeling some type of way, and that's why she's sending that energy towards Clea. Um, but then that's when we get uh, Tay. Wasn't it? I kind of wasn't expecting this from Tay. Just being honest. But again, that didn't occur until, if I remember correctly, it was episode 2. But Tay does, of course, he does come to her to say, hey, like, it's good to see you. But by the way, I've been trying to reach you. I've been trying to call, and you felt like you've been avoiding me. But my Mothman's like, oh no, like I've been, you should know that I'm trying to prepare for my daughter's wedding, right? Blah blah blah. But he's just like, hey, we do need to have a specific conversation. But at the same time, with that, I have had a bit of a struggle on some stuff. Oh, by the way, my wife is not at home anymore. Blah 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 blah. So he's of course he was hinting at it. It was very light in his hint per this brief conversation that he had with Mon Mothma. Um, but I was kind of curious because his tone towards her, even in this spot here, it was very interesting. I was just like, whoa, like yo, like he's saying sounded kind of different. Wasn't what I was again because again this is a year later, so a lot of stuff has definitely changed. You could tell the story has definitely changed and shifted with after a year. So then now that these 3 episodes are over, we're going to be getting a whole new year, a whole new set of episodes and areas and spaces and places. So yeah, I'm curious. I'm wondering what's to come. But in the midst of all of that, they don't really get to have a full-on conversation. And why? Because uh, uh, Dalvo's wife comes and says, hey, like, they had their first fight, excuse me, Tay, we gotta take my Mothma away, blah blah blah. And she runs off to go and find Lydia over here crying. In the midst of what's getting ready to transpire in this room, I do like how this scene is set up. Why? Because the lights are either dimmed low or just fully turned off. You have minor lights in the background. This is like this is definitely like setting the mood here when it's pertaining to the lights being off. When it's pertaining to Lydia sitting on the ground crying with tears in her eyes, while Mamatha comes to wonder and give her motherly love, all of that. And of course, ask her what happened. And of course, what did happen? Lydia basically said, like, hey, I was just trying to hold his hand. He's nothing but a child, blah, blah, blah. And I'm similar. Well, technically, you're kind of a child too, young lady. But in the midst of all of that, she's just like, hey, like, he's just a child. He wouldn't let me hold his hand and blah, blah, blah. And he kept pushing me away. And, all Mon Mothma in this moment, I get it, I understand. All she could really do is say, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry that this has occurred to you, towards you, by you, and all of that. But at least Mon Mothma was here to at least have this conversation. But again, like I said, per the setting of this scene, I did like how the lights were either off or down low. She was just in this room. This just kind of felt like the right type of a style of a scene in this moment to have this type of conversation where there's not that many lights on. The mood is set in this specific way to let us know, like, yes, it's very quiet in this room. Lydia can just sit in this room and just cry her heart out. So yeah, I'm glad that Mon Mothma could stop in and pretty much help her, help her to calm down. But in the midst of all of that, then of course we still get the the Maipeis arguing over stuff and talking about somebody's brother and blah 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 blah. So I finally understood why this was stretched out, and more so, the main reason. I'm gonna come back on camera again just briefly. I finally understood why we were getting so much of everything in these 3 episodes. The field section, the wedding, and Yavin. That's basically what the planet is, right? Is per all of these episodes, we're going to be getting key scenes, and it's just going to be those scenes in those spots. That's what I'm taking from how Gilroy and them set it up. And I believe I'm personally believing that that's what it's going to be in episodes 4, 5, and 6. And then 7, 8, 9. And then 10, 11, 12. We're not moving anywhere else. So wherever anything goes on in spaces and places in the next 3 episodes to come on Tuesday, those are the spaces and places. We're not going to be going from, we're not going to be going from one planet to 6 other planets. We're more than likely going to be probably more like if something is occurring on Coruscant, it's just going to be on Coruscant. Then there's going to be some other space, and then some other space, and those are the 3 spaces that we're going to be in that is occurring within that next stretch of a year. So that's what I took from these first 3 episodes. I believe that's what's going to happen in episodes 4, 5, and 6 to come. So if you're expecting to see more extra stuff, you're probably more than likely going to have to wait till the following week, because we're more than likely going to be on another planet or three other sections of a planet or wherever. We're just going to be in those spaces. That's why we had 3 episodes with the wedding to build up to it. 3 episodes on, three spots with the wedding, 3 spots with Yavin, and the 3 spots with Brazo and Bix and them. All of that was just all on one specific spot. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to put out there. That I feel like is literally what we are gonna be getting. So that's pretty much episode 1, and that was a lot. That was a lot to talk about. Okay. Episode 2. I'm getting a little tired. I'm gonna try to get through episode 2 if I can. If not, I will just continue it in the morning. It's after 10:30. I'm usually asleep by now. But I'm gonna try to go another half hour if I can. I don't want to be up too late. Even though I'm off tomorrow, I want to get some sleep. But episode 2, titled Sagrona Tima. Was wondering why that title was the way it was. We find that out later in the episode. but we're seeing Luthen here. He brings his secret. It has arrived. This big gigantic statue, right? But we don't know exactly what it is. But it's actually a beautiful sculpture statue, to be honest. Just to be honest, I really loved Luthen's outfit here, like like at least the under spot, because we know that he wore like that what you call it over it. But I do love his look here. But we get Clea here. She pretty much comes up and basically says the same thing to him, like, hey, like, there's still no communication, blah blah blah. Like, now, and I felt like Clea was getting a little bit more worried. I think she did mention that she was getting a little bit more worried about, why she couldn't hear anything. You could kind of tell in her face or expression and stuff like that. But she's at least keeping Luthen apprised in the midst of him doing what he's doing, and like I said, bringing his gift here. But she she's at least letting Luthen know, what's the deal, what's going on. But again, we get Mon Mothma's crappy husband, and then we get this interesting conversation between Mon Mothma and her husband, right? Where they're conversing real briefly, right? It's a real brief conversation, but he does end up bringing Tay. He's like, oh, by the way, how's your little boyfriend? Blah blah blah. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're saying. But then he's like, Tay Coma was here, and that's when her expression got serious. She was just like, hey, I haven't heard that type of response from you in a long time. But I find it interesting that the dynamic of Mon Mothma and her husband, their relationship is very interesting. Like, they seem close, right? But I kind of feel like if like, say, again, it didn't happen, but say if Mon Mothma did cheat, like, I kind of feel like her husband wouldn't mind. Like, he would just be upset, but he would just be like, oh, I'm still here, I'm still living with, I'm just something that, what I mean? Like, so I don't like dude. I just don't like him. He's a crappy guy. He's a crappy husband. A little bit funny on the funny side, but at the same time, I don't like dude. His responses to Mon Mothma are very just like definitely rude, right? To be honest, from my own perspective. But the actor himself, he does a really great job of you not liking his character. But we'll get to his speech for sure. At the wedding for sure, because it was an interesting speech. But again, like I said, his responses to Mon Mothma are just like right out, just rude and mean. And at the end of the day, Mon Mothma, yes, her and Tay were they would hang out a lot. So he was jealous because he's like, oh, that's my wife, blah blah blah, and he would poke the bear and stuff like that. And he even mentioned to Mon Mothma, like, he's always been weak and blah blah blah. It's just like man, like, and then of course you get Mon Mothma's, the expression on her face changes once he walks away. So it's just one of those things. Like I would have been like, dude, like, dude, like, calm down, son. Like, go have a cookie and a smile. Like, chill out. Leave her alone. She's okay. She's a grown woman. She's gonna be alright. You'll be alright. Okay, so we do get Brasso's friend here. He comes and gives information about the once again updating about the visas and stuff, updating about about the group, them possibly coming to see them, but he has to gain some more information on if they're actually going to be coming in a direction and stuff. So it's just like, that's still something This is basically what that whole situation is about. Them preparing for a possible visit from this imperial crew that's coming. That has actually arrived on the planet. But again, he has to, gain more key information on. If they do, he needs to be able to handle business. So, I was getting this whole scene. It's just like he's just the messenger, but he's got to work his magic to try to figure some stuff out. But in the midst of all of that, Cassian is going through. Like I said, I finally understood, the my pays situation here and stuff. We were just getting how this group was dysfunctional, how they didn't know how to function without a leader. Everybody was at each other's throat about what to do next, and eventually, yes, they ended up splitting apart and fighting amongst each other and stuff like that. And at the same time, I kind of felt like this whole situation could have lasted a lot less than 3 episodes, but over time, I finally understood why everything was happening the way it was in each episode. But I did like this spot here with the food that they decided to go on ahead and eat. I kind of think that this, whatever this is, melon type thing, that was dripping out, whatever was dripping out, they technically are in survival mode. They technically more than likely haven't ate in a day and a half, maybe. Was probably their last meal. And I just think that this was probably something that was soured out, that was not fresh. Even one of them mentions like, hey, like it has a interesting smell to it, blah blah blah. But your boy here, he was with it. He was just like, look, I'm gonna just go on ahead and do it, and he did. And of course, he had his own, just like, ooh. They all had the same response. They were like, ooh. So yeah. But then we get the homie. We get our homie, Cyril. He ends up responding. He ends up speaking and saying the same line that he was spoken to, because now he's in charge. Now he's been promoted. Now he's training. All of that. I found this to be a funny scene, but still a good scene. Where are we here? Is it? So in the midst of all this, he's training this young guy here. I done lost my space here on my screenshots.
Found an entry on the Bernesian liquid counter didn't match. 200 coke on charge of that.
Here we go. He's conversing with the young man, telling him like, hey, like I was right where you were all those many moons ago, and blah blah blah.
There are no small jobs here at the Bureau.
Yeah, he said there are no small jobs here at the Bureau of blah blah blah. Right? I was cracking. I was like, hey, that's the same line from the other cat. But I kind of felt like, per his character, per this moment when he's talking to the young man, I kind of felt like his confidence, his energy, his focus was way better. He's really owning this position, to me, being honest. Even the snap of his finger when he, like I said, when he was like, hey, I used to sit over here in this spot in this section over here, and dude turned, he was like, hold on, wait, no, wait. He snaps his finger, no, wait, hold on. Don't look over there. Focus on me. Listen to what I'm saying. And, he brings up the what you call it with the, I forgot specifically what he was talking about with the, when he investigated something and he found something specific in his workspace and stuff like that, and then he when he's talking to the young man, he's just like, what did he say? He said something like, there's, let me see if because I have it here on my TV. ball.
There's a future here. There's a future here for those who dare.
Yeah, he said he said there's a future here for those who dare. like I guys, I'm still cracking up at this moment. Like I said, Cyril was owning. He's literally owning this position. Like I said, he uncovered a cabal. Blah 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 blah. And then that's when he really focuses in on this one statement to the young man. He says, is there is a future here for those who dare." That could be something that's on a T-shirt or something. I was just cracking up. Like, just being honest, I was just cracking up. And then we go back to the wheat field and stuff. We get Will and the young lady talking. Pretty much, yeah. Like they're in like with each other. They ain't in love. I wouldn't call them in love, but they're in like with each other. They're feeling each other. They want to continue to be around each other. But this was just more so just them, just like, hey, like, I need you to survive. I need you to blah blah blah. Make sure you come back to me. This, that, and the third, and be safe. And I understood the scene. This was, the homie, the young man. He has his boo. She has him. I get the little small scene here, but then that's when we get we swap to the crew showing up, and they are looking on at the crew showing up because you're like, oh man, there they are. And they come into the store, and I actually like this scene because dude's there, his wife's there, Brazo is in the room though. I like that Brazo is here. Where are we? They're just conversing. They're talking about like, hey, we're just here to basically said we're here to shop. Do you take credits? Blah blah blah. But I like that Brazo's here. Why is Brazo here? Because he's actually like on guard. I like the spotter because he's actually like, he's slowly walking through the store because he's, listening in on the conversation and sort of kind of on edge just to make sure, just in case something pops off, he can step in. But in the midst of all of that, we get what is more than likely a controversial or a build up to it. This dude is a piece of trash, just being honest, as I would hope that the rest of you would feel the same. But Bix was not expecting a visitor, but this dude was, and that's the thing, it's not like he just he also noticed Will's girlfriend as well. He's just a piece of trash. He just kind of felt like, oh, like there's this young lady here. She's a tribal. Let me go talk to her. Let me get in her face. Let me, oh, you're married, but where's your husband? Oh, your husband's not here. Blah blah blah. Let me try to see if I can get close. Like, he's just a piece of trash. But I did like how Bix, in this moment when she's conversing with him about the conversation, that she comes over to this thing and causes it to kind of like, because I did notice that she did some twisting thing in it and it spurted out some gas or something like that, kind of make it be a little bit of a distraction. But also too, I'm also glad that Brazo did show up. Yeah, once Brazo showed up, he was just like, okay, cool, because it did feel like he was trying to get even more closer to her. And like I said, I'm glad that Brazo came in just in time to have him leave. But again, we eventually are gonna pretty much see what he does or attempts to do, should I say, in episode 3. But let me switching to back to the crew. Again, I like their outfits. They're heading towards the they're traditional Chandrilan custom that they had to walk. What was it? They had to walk up this mountain, whatever. They got the everybody got these sticks and they're just conversing about stuff. But Mon Mothma and Vel were having a specific conversation. They were talking about Luthen, and then they were also talking about Senta. That I just enjoyed just because they were just kind of trying to help us, the viewer, kind of understand where, what Vel has been up to more, and of course what Senta has been up to. Um, so because she did still play a pivotal role in season one. Um, so that's pretty much that space and place of this moment in time. But I did also too. I like the mountain view of the spot here when they're walking up the mountain to get to their next spot. I really like this mountain view here. Just before we ended up switching to our new power couple. Dedra looking out the window. And I kind of feel like in this specific moment in time, because Dedra's home, she's back from her trip. I personally felt like this space and place just before Cyril came in the room, or came in the house, she made up in her mind like, look, I need to have a conversation with Partagas. I don't want this Gorman thing. I want to get back. I want to stick with Axis. Blah blah blah. It was just the way that she looked out the window. It was just her expression more than anything. But we do find out that her and Cyril are a couple. And like I mentioned in my video, I'll mention it again. I've been on record how I said I don't want them to be a couple. That wouldn't work out and blah blah blah. But I am somebody who definitely can see this working out in a weird, strange way, because I kind of feel like that they probably do work out. Yes, they had a great scene coming up soon, right? But it was the build up to that great scene that I loved. They, have the brief conversation about how she's back. Cyril's like, hey, like, should we kind of maybe not do this? Maybe it's because I was wondering, like, oh, well, first and foremost, she grabs his face this way. My nose did kind of turn up a little bit. I was just like, oh, whoa, no. But again, this was before what we were getting ready to get. And she even like rubbed his lips in a very affectionate way. And she was just like, no, we're not canceling. We can't. And I was just like wondering, like, what are they talking about? Canceling what specifically? And Cyril, when she walks away, he's like, well, okay, tomorrow then, blah blah blah. And his expression was what it was as she walks away and he turns around. Like I said, he turns around, he smiles at tomorrow then. But then, like I said, his expression fully changes to this because it's an expression of worry, and it's like, oh my goodness, like I really have to do this. But again, we didn't know what was getting ready to come down the pipe, down the line. So that's that one, and then we get to what's getting ready to occur here, specifically with Mon Mothma. But in the midst of that, I do like Luthen in the background here, because we see that Mothma and Take get back together again for another scene. They're conversing. Luthen's walking down and he notices them. He sees them together. And Luthen becomes worried. where is it? His expression changes, and he's like, something ain't right. Something's not right at all. But like I said, they're they pull themselves away from the crowd to have more of a focal conversation. And I feel like you, like myself, probably more than likely, was taken aback by Tay in what he was getting ready to converse with Mon Mothma about right here. And what is that? That conversation is the fact that he goes back to, like, yes, I needed to have this conversation with you. I was trying to get in touch with you. Felt like you were ignoring me. Blah 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 blah. You know, I want to bring back up uh, your fundraiser. Why am I bringing this back up? Because my mom was like, hey, what's really going on? Are you okay? And he's like, well, I sort of kind of was, but something's going on. Again, like he had mentioned, he did mention this about his wife and stuff like that. And on top of that, he also mentioned a couple times about his businesses. And my Mothma was picking up what he was putting down. And then eventually, as we're watching them converse, her expression changes again. Nervousness, fear, confusion, definitely confusion, because he's bringing up some information, and then that's when he also talks about her side rebellion stuff, because he does mention about rumors being spoken. He came across he does mention him being around Dalvo a few times as well. So yeah, I was thinking about it. I was like, yo, dude, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? What is this? Where is this coming from? And yeah, like I said, I like you, probably more like you. I couldn't believe it. But again, Luthen was in the background. He was paying attention, following them while they're walking and talking and conversing. And but eventually, once Tay leaves, he has a side conversation with my Mothma about a number, because this is something that she wasn't expecting for him to do. Very random. And she's like, hey, we're meeting at Coruscant next week. I'll get the number. I'll figure it out. You don't have to do anything. Let me handle it. But Luthen, we eventually found out that he does. Will we see that being handled? I don't know. I'm guessing that we might. But he's just like, look, like Luthen's like, I want to step in, and but at the same time, I need to know this number, because I may have to come out of pocket myself. But in the midst of all of that, that's when we get the bum husband coming up to give his own speech to the people, to the bride and groom to be, because they haven't wedded yet, they haven't been married yet. Excuse me. Let me see. But he pretty much was just telling, because they did mention the name of the title in this moment a plethora of times, several times. They did talk about the Sagruna Tima. They kept saying it, more specifically him. He's just like, Sagruna, my Sagruna Salam, blah blah blah. He definitely was more so just encouraging the soon to be wedded soon to be son-in-law, soon to be daughter, now wife, to basically say like, hey, what was he saying? He was saying like, hey, like, there are gonna be some trying times. There are gonna be some down times. You're going to experience that. You're going to have arguments. You're going to blah blah blah. But in the midst of that, when he was talking to them, he did mention about about love. He did talk about the hope of love, not losing that. And in the midst of him saying all of this, the camera did pan to Luthen. And when he was mentioning this stuff, the camera hits Luthen. Luthen looked down before he looked to the side. I found it interesting that he looked down because he kind of smirked, he kind of laughed at what he was saying. But remember, Luthen does mention about giving up love, about giving up, laying next to, the person that he loved in the same bed as them and enjoying life. I felt like in this moment, Luthen's mind shifted to something else. More than likely, there's some other person that he probably did love once, but he lost that love. But in the midst of him shifting to that moment, that's when he shifted to the person that he is worried about. And that is, again, Tay, because Tay is still in the room. So I'm just like, it was brought to my attention, maybe yours as well, and that is that Tony Gilroy did go on record and saying that we would gain some key information about Luthen's past in this season. Hopefully that information comes over the course maybe of the next 6 episodes. We will see. But in the midst of that, we got the toast and everything, and he was done talking, and in the midst of all that, Mon Mothma was at least showing some signs of agreement to the toast and everything. But that pretty much was the episode for episode 2, and I think I'm gonna just call it here. Just because, like I said, it's literally after 11 p.m. I'm usually asleep by now, but it's my first time in a long time being up this late, especially live streaming. I used to live stream years ago, video gaming, because I'm a gamer. But those are pretty much my thoughts on episodes 1 and 2. In the morning, several hours later, roughly around 8 a.m., 8:30, 9 a.m., I'm going to go re-live again and discuss my thoughts on episode 3 and just do a whole corresponding review on all 3. And then I'll eventually more than likely work on that video that I was talking about for tomorrow. It's supposed to come out tomorrow, but I have to do the recording first and then do the next recording for Monday. And then we'll be in preparation for episodes 4, 5, and 6 on Tuesday. But yeah, thanks for watching. Like I said, I'm getting ready to go to bed. Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm still getting comments from you all from my other videos. Those videos are popping. I'm just glad that Andor is back, and we're discussing, we're conversing, we're Emil, hello, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Definitely have a good night. If you're here, like I said, if you're here tomorrow, I'm off tomorrow. I guess in the next 6, 7, 8 hours from now. Definitely come back. I'll be going live again to talk about my thoughts on episode 3. Like I said, I just wish I could have gotten through all of this. I don't want to do a whole nother half hour. I'm just gonna go to bed and I'll just redo live again tomorrow. But yeah, episodes 1 and 2 and 3 were just done really well to me. But those are my thoughts on episodes 1 and 2. Like I said, leave some comment section below this one if you made it through this entire stream. And yeah, go check out my thoughts on the 3 videos that I put up on the channel currently. Share your thoughts. I'll be looking, reacting, responding over the course of this weekend to talk about and also laugh at some of your comments were just hilarious. Those comments that I was reading just too funny. More specifically about the Dedra, Edie, and Cyril Karn dinner table stuff. That was hilarious. But I'm out. I'm going to bed. I'll holler at y'all in the morning. Stay safe, stay humble, and